What's going on, guys? Today we are going to be talking about Palantir, and Palantir has gone through quite a bit of volatility over the last month or so. So what I want to do first is I want to take a look at who is buying this stock, specifically Cathie Wood, because Cathie Wood has started to buy again into Palantir, and I want to take a look at the lifespan of her position in Palantir and the mistakes she has made, as well as what she is doing now. Then we'll jump into insider trading within this stock, who is buying and who is selling out of Palantir, and then we'll leave off this video by going over government contracts, specifically with the US government, because there have been a number of contracts that have come up over the last couple of months. And what I want to do is I want to take a look at the value of US government contracts that Palantir has gotten this year, and I want to compare that to their 2022 numbers and where these government contracts could really take revenue in the future. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure you drop a like down below, and if you want to see more videos like this one, make sure you hit that sub button. We can see today that Palantir moved down 3.2%. However, if we look over the last 5 days, this stock is up almost 7%, and just on Monday alone, it moved up over 12%. And even over the last month, Palantir has experienced some volatility. We could see that back in September, it was trading around $16, but it moved down from there around 11 to 12%. But from its lows of this past month to where it is traded at in the last week, it has moved up almost 30%. And so far this year, Palantir is up over 170%. And from the start of the year to its 52-week highs, it would be up a little over 200%. However, it has traded down over the last couple of months, down around 13% from its 52-week high. It could be interesting to look at super investors and how they have bought into and built out positions in companies, especially Cathie Wood for Palantir, because back in 2021, she was buying Palantir stock anywhere from $19 all the way up to $28, and she built out a position of over 19 million shares. However, since then, Cathie Wood has been a net seller of Palantir. We can see that in the fourth quarter of 2021, she sold around 2 million shares at a cost basis that is likely lower than what she bought in at. And then she continued to sell in the first quarter of 2022, where she sold 35 million shares, again at a much lower cost basis than where she likely bought at. One thing to keep in mind is oftentimes as investors withdraw money from these funds, these fund managers are forced to sell out of positions, and they will often choose their smaller positions that they have less faith in. And we can see that Palantir only makes up less than 1% of their entire portfolio and is their 25th largest holding. And as we have seen Palantir explode upward this year, we have seen Cathie Wood become a net buyer again. She added around 7 million shares in the second quarter of 2023. The biggest takeaway that I have when I look at super investors is that nobody is perfect. Everyone makes mistakes, especially in the stock market. People will buy stocks at highs and sell them at lows, and also you will have stocks where you buy them at lows and sell them at highs. There is always going to be different situations going on in the market. The biggest thing is to continue learning and never buy a company just because someone else did. Make sure you understand why you're buying into that company and what your thesis is moving forward. So even with that said, I wanted to show insider trades within Palantir, and we could see that there are about 3.8 million shares that were bought over the last 3 months and around 4.4 million shares that were sold over the last 3 months. So about a 50-50 split for the last quarter. If we look at the last 12 months, however, there's a little bit more of an imbalance to the sell side, where there were 12 million shares that were sold and only 9.7 million shares that were bought. So when we look at these numbers, we can see that over the last 3 months, there's slightly more buying than there was over the last 12 months. And this overall is probably a good thing for the company. Generally, it just means that insiders have a little bit more faith in where the company is headed in the future. Now let's go ahead and jump into what I am most excited to go over in this video, and that is contracts for Palantir, specifically military contracts. We saw them sign a deal with the British government around a contract for doing data for them and some of their healthcare system, but we're seeing more contracts come out from the US government. Specifically, the Army awarded Palantir a $250 million contract that will go through 2026. And as part of this contract, Palantir is planned to provide additional capabilities in support of combatant commands, armed services, intelligence community, and special forces as they continue to test, utilize, and scale artificial intelligence and machine learning. And of course, this isn't Palantir's first US Army contract. They They have been partnering with the US Army since 2018, where they have been providing leading data integration, management, and AI model training. And if you go on defense.gov, you can actually see every time that Palantir has been mentioned in a contract. And what I want to take a look at in this video is all the contracts from 2023. In March, there were actually 3 different contracts that Palantir signed with the US government, and we can see the first being for $18.5 million, and this was with the Air Force. And so far in fiscal year 2023, they're anticipating around $4 to $8 million of that contract actually being committed. We also saw another contract in March for $900 million by the US Air Force. However, this was a grouped contract where they were partnered with other companies like Oracle, and it was just for general data software services. And the third contract in March was for $60 million with the US Army, where they were tasked for research and development services in the area of artificial intelligence and machine learning. And so far this year, they have obligated around $42.5 million of that contract. In June, there were a few additional contracts that were signed, the first being with the US Special Operations Command, and this was a 5-year deal worth a max of $463 million, and so far there has been about $29.5 million committed in the fiscal year of 2023. We also saw Palantir sign a contract with the headquarters of the Air Force for their data as a service platform, and this contract was worth $58.4 million, and so far they have committed around $12.5 million of this contract. We also saw a contract signed for $32.8 million with the Space Command and Control Agency, and this was also for data as a service, and they have committed around $8.5 million of this contract. And the final contract signed in June was for $19.2 million with the North American Aerospace Defense Command, and again this was for data as a service platform, and they have committed around $9.6 million of this contract already. And finally, we have the contract that we mentioned at the start for $250 million over a 3-year period for research and development services in the area of artificial intelligence and machine learning with the US Army. Here we have all of those contracts broken out. So there are a few things that I wanted to note. One is I left off the $900 million contract because that is split over multiple companies. 2, this $463 million contract, that is a 5-year deal, so we will not see all of that revenue hit in 2023. And then the last one is this $250 million contract, that is a 3-year deal, so again, we will not see all of that hit in 2023. The total value of all of these contracts comes out to $902 million. However, when we split 463 by 5 and 250 by 3 years, we see that the total that we could expect in 2023 would be a maximum of $364 million. However, the biggest thing for me is not the total revenue number, but the fact that Palantir has been able to build out very strong relationships within the US government, whether it's the Air Force, the Army, US Special Operations, Space Command, or the North American Aerospace Defense. These are all sections of the government that receive a lot of funding. And US government revenue is a strong component of Palantir's total revenue numbers. We can see that in fiscal year 2022, Palantir brought in a total revenue of $1.9 billion. And of that $1.9 billion, $826 million was made up of US government revenue. Overall, having a good relationship with the US government is going to be a great thing for Palantir in the future because it is a very stable revenue source. We are always seeing the US government pouring money into our Army, our Navy, our Air Force, and Palantir is going to directly benefit from that. However, as we went over at the start of the video, do not buy a company just because a super investor bought into it. Do not buy a company just because some random guy on YouTube talked about it. Make sure you are doing your own research and looking into companies that meet your risk tolerance as well as your time horizon. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you drop a like down below. And if you want to see more videos like this one, make sure you hit that sub button. And as always, guys, have a wonderful rest of your day.